السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته، ومرحبا بكم مجددا مشاهدين قناة المغرب بعيون الأجانب. أصدقائي، رجع لكم فيديو زوين غني بالمعلومات وكيهضر على التاريخ ديال الإمبراطورية المغربية. واليوم أصدقائي عندنا واحد الفيديو على أشكال وثائقي قصير ديال واحد الأفغاني شغوف بالتاريخ الإسلامي. هو اسمه طريق من أفغانستان وكيعيش في الولايات المتحدة. والفيديو ديال اليوم على أحد السلاطين المغاربة اللي كتعتبر من أعظم السلاطين اللي حكموا المغرب، وهو السلطان مولاي إسماعيل بن الشريف، وهو ثاني سلاطين الدولة العلوية في المغرب، وحكم المغرب من 1672، وكيتعتبر أحد أبرز القادة العسكريين في تاريخ المغرب، بحيث تميزت العودة ديالو بالاستقرار والقوة والتوسع كذلك. وهو اللي بنى في العهد ديالو جيش من أعظم الجيوش اللي دازوا في تاريخ المغرب، وهو الجيش اللي تعرف بعبيد البخاري، اللي كان كيوازي الجيش الانكشاريين في العثمانيين في ذاك الوقت، وقدر ينجح في توحيد البلاد بعد فترة قصيرة من حكمه بعد صراعات طويلة كانت وقعت في المغرب ومحاولة انفصال. ونجح كذلك في طرد العديد من الأوروبيين بحال الإسبان والبرتغاليين من المغرب، من سواحل مدن المغرب. وهو كذلك اللي بنى مدينة مكناس وحول لها العاصمة ديال الدولة العلوية، وبنى كذلك العديد من القصور. أصدقائي، بلا ما نطول عليكم، خليونا نستمتعوا بهذا الفيديو ديال هذا الأفغاني اللي شغوف على حسب لمحه في القناه ديالو، على حسب ما قلبت عليه، شغوف بالتاريخ الاسلامي، وعنده بزاف ديال الفيديوهات على التاريخ الاسلامي، ماشي فقط غير المغرب وانما على التاريخ الاسلامي في جميع بقاع العالم. اصدقائي، بلا ما نطول عليكم، خليونا نشوفوا الفيديو. والى عجبكم الفيديو ما تنساوش تدعمونا بجيم اشتراك باش نبقاو نجيبوا بحال هاد الفيديوهات هادو، بما ان القناه ديالنا اسمها المغرب بعيون الاجانب، فكنجيبوا فيديوهات كيكونوا ديال الاجانب كيفاش كيشوفوا المغرب من بلاصه اخرى، بحال هذا اللي من قاره بعيده عن المغرب وداير فيديو كيهضر على التاريخ المغربي. فمن هنا تعرفوا التاريخ ديال الامبراطوريه العظيمه المغربيه الى اين هو ممتد. اصدقائي، بلا ما نطول عليكم، كالعاده اللي كيشوفني اول مره، انا مصطفى من الصويره، كنجي فيديوهات اجنبيه كنحاول نترجمها ونبسطها وكنحطها في القناه ديالي باش يتفرجوا فيها الناس. على بركه الله، وخليونا نشوفوا الفيديو.
Morocco's history is filled with epic rulers who etched their names across the pages of history. Yusuf bin Tashfin, Ahmad al-Mansur. Its final great ruler was a man who ruled for 55 years, Sultan Ismail of the Alawi dynasty. He took Morocco from a fragmented land that was at the prey of the Europeans to a strong, independent country that could protect itself from external and internal threats. In the process, he provided the country with stability and prosperity, even if they were achieved brutally in his signature autocratic style. This video is a two-part collaboration with useful charts who will track the entire history of the Alawi dynasty before and after Sultan Ismail.
واحد توضيح بسيط، هو كيقول هذا الفيديو تم انتاجه بالتعاون مع هاد القناه هذه اللي عرضها دابا. هاد القناه هذه حتى هي متخصصه في التاريخ، وعندهم واحد الفيديو كما كتشوفوا، هو داير لهم واحد السكرين شوت ديال الفيديو ديالهم، كيعرضوا فيه هنايا التاريخ ديال العلويين من اول حاكم الى اخر حاكم. الا بغيتوا هذا الفيديو هذا نجيبوا لكم حتى هو نترجموا ندير لكم في القناه، خليوها لي في التعليقات. انا شفتوا هذا الفيديو هذا طويل شويه. على بركة الله، ونكملوا الفيديو. فقط توضيح باش تعرفوا علاش عرض هو هذه القناة.
I'll leave a link to his video in the description below. Make sure you check that out after you're done with this video. After the death of the great Sadian ruler Ahmad al-Mansur in 1603, Morocco went through an extended period of instability and the fragmentation of central authority. This gave local leaders the opportunity to stake their claim for power. It's in this kind of a political vacuum that the Alawites emerged. In the 1630s, Ismail's father, Sharif ibn Ali, established the dynasty. From the 1630s onwards, the Alawites expanded from their base in the Tafilalt region. Not much progress was made in this regard until the 1660s, when Ismail's competent brother, Rashid, forcibly took the family mantle in 1664. In the space of just 8 years, he was able to conquer all the important cities, thus managing to unite the country. For this reason, he was the first Alawite Sultan of Morocco. But Rashid's death in 1672 would bring a giant of Moroccan history to the throne, one that was even more capable than him. Hearing of his brother's death on a hunting accident, Ismail quickly took control of the throne, but his grip on power was far from secure. In accordance with the developments of the time, the Sultan's death was taken as a signal by various groups and individuals as a power-grabbing opportunity. Internal intrigues inside the family meant that Ismail had to contend with his own nephew and brothers on numerous occasions. This issue was finally resolved in 1685 with the death of his nephew. Ismail also had to fortify himself from external threats. The extended period of political disorder prior to the Alawites had afforded certain European nations with a foothold in Morocco. The Spanish and Portuguese had established their presence by holding numerous coastal towns and cities in the north and west. At the same time, Ismail had to worry about his fellow Muslims, the Ottomans, who occupied Algeria to his east. All this does not take into consideration what might have been Ismail's most dangerous foe. You see, the very landscape of Morocco lends itself to forming people that are fiercely independent and self-sufficient. Within the mountains and deserts of this land live a tribal ethnic group that were just that: the Berbers. Their aversion to central authority being imposed upon them led to a number of rebellions against Ismail. And considering their huge numbers and martial prowess, Ismail needed to come up with a solution that could satisfy his primary political priority. He had to be the alpha male of Morocco. That meant nobody could contest his authority. Ismail's respect for absolutism, as well as the glory associated with his long reign, bore him comparisons with his French contemporary, Louis XIV. Ismail was a man who knew his people and his land. He recognized the need for a large military force that could withstand all the various threats to his power, internal and external. And so he made what could probably be described as the most important decision of his rule. He created something known as the Abid al-Bukhari. This army was made up of black Africans, hence why in English they were known as the Black Guard. They were personally loyal to the Sultan, kind of like the Janissaries under the Ottomans. But unlike the Janissaries, the Abid were not celibate. They were given black women by Sultan Ismail as partners, therefore still keeping them separate from the rest of Moroccan society, an integral rationale behind forces independent of local loyalties throughout history. The Abid would receive years of training as builders and soldiers. They received their name because for their oath of allegiance they swore loyalty on the Sahih al-Bukhari, the well-known collection of hadiths or traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. They were deployed by Ismail in the most important sectors of governance, such as tax collecting and putting down revolts against his authority. With their large numbers, estimated to be between 70,000 to 150,000, they were stationed in a network of garrisons across the country. The military prowess of the Abid effectively served Ismail's vision for absolute authority, and their hard power effect on society was complemented well by Ismail's usage of his prestigious descent to legitimize his position. As was the case with their Sa'dian predecessors, the Alawites claimed descent from none other than the Prophet Muhammad. The dynastic name itself comes from the name of the fourth Rashidun Khalif, Ali. The Alawite rulers even used the title Mulay, which could be connected to Ali but could also just mean Lord. Whether or not this lineal connection was real or not almost doesn't matter. The intended aim is of most importance to us. The fact that such a strong association with the most venerated man in Islam existed would only have served to reinforce the Alawite spiritual and political legitimacy. But the glory linked with Sultan Ismail was not solely underpinned by his political exploits. In addition to stamping his authority across his realm and fortifying it from outside threats, he was firmly invested in raising the overall prosperity and progress of Moroccan society. In Meknes, he essentially built an imperial capital from scratch. With his abundant supply of slaves funneled to him by the Barbary pirates, Ismail ordered large-scale constructions in his capital, such as the immense palace complex, the Kasbah of Mulay Ismail. Morocco experienced a sustained period of stability and peace during Ismail's reign. This naturally led to trade and commerce thriving. Despite his struggles with certain European nations, Ismail was pragmatic enough to realize he could benefit from trading with Europe. In 1684, he had kicked out the English from Tangiers, but by 1721, the English were Ismail's biggest trading partners. Morocco exported commodities such as wool, copper, tin, dates, ostrich feathers and hides, whilst importing things like cotton, silk, gunpowder and arms. Ismail also used his army to impose his authority deep into the Sahara Desert, on important trade cities like Timbuktu and Jenne. This helped him to take control of the profitable trans-Saharan trade routes. In line with his absolutist tendencies, Sultan Ismail even enforced his authority on the Barbary pirates as well. Prior to his reign, they were not really regulated by royal authority. The pirate republic of Salah is a good example of that. But to Ismail, such an affront to his authority could never be tolerated. So he curtailed their freedom by forcing them to hand over slaves for which he paid them compensation. He also owned the majority of their ships. If you want to know more about the Barbary pirates, check out the video I did on them. So it was that by the time of his death in 1727, after 55 long years of reigning, Ismail had created a domain in which he reigned supreme. The European presence on Moroccan soil was reduced to a few Spanish and Portuguese enclaves. The eastern border with Ottoman Algeria had been secured. He reigned over a realm where the Bilad al-Makhzen, the areas under direct central government authority, was enlarged to encompass all of Morocco, whilst the Bilad al-Sibba, the areas where tribal authority was the law of the land, was severely reduced in its influence. But despite the extraordinary achievements of Ismail during his lifetime, it can be argued that his reign did not necessarily provide a sustainable foundation for his successors to inherit. For one thing, Sultan Ismail was considered an exceptionally harsh ruler. There are a plethora of European accounts which portray him to be an immensely cruel and bloodthirsty ruler. Apparently, he enjoyed drawing his sword as he mounted a horse and decapitating a slave standing nearby. Whilst these accounts are most likely exaggerated, Ismail was certainly an autocratic ruler. The amount of taxes levied upon people was especially unpopular, particularly with the Berber tribesmen. They would resist this all the way until the end of his reign. And once a capable strongman like Ismail died, his successors fell short of the same vigor that he had, so there would be little chance of the tribesmen paying the exorbitant taxes. In addition, the Abid al-Bukhari, which was so crucial to his rule, were personally loyal to Ismail. So once he died, nothing could control them, especially not his successors, who became puppets for different Abid factions. To confound matters even further, Sultan Ismail has the peculiar honor of going into the record books for the amount of children he had. He is said to have fathered at least 1,000 children, thus placing himself amongst the most fertile men in history. But in conjunction with the aforementioned factors, this resulted in the throne of Morocco changing hands more than a dozen times in the next 20 years, as Ismail's various sons fought over it, until his grandson Muhammad III stabilized the country in the second half of the 18th century. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe.
اصدقائي كان هذا هو الفيديو ديالنا. الا عجبكم ما تنسوش تدعمونا بجيم واشتراك. وعندي سؤال كيدور ليا في راسي شحال هذه: علاش المخرجين السينمائيين والروائيين ديالنا المغاربه علاش ما قدروش ينتجوا واحد السلسله ولا واحد المسلسل على السلاطين المغاربه بحال هذا السلطان العظيم اللي داز في المغرب؟ طبعا ذكر هنا بعض الجوانب اللي كانوا بعض الروايات والكتب الاوروبيه اللي كتحاول تشوه السمعه ديالو وكتوصفه بانه وحش ودموي وذوك فهمتي. هذه حاجه طبيعيه لان الخصوم ديالك ملي كيكون الكتاب صادر ولا شي وثائق صادره عن الخصم ديالك فغادي يكون بالطبيعه غادي يكون شي حاجه ديال التهويل وشي حاجه ديال كما كنقولوا حنا كيزيدوا في فيخرات من عندهم. هذا سؤال انا كنخمم فيه دائما. علاش ما يديروش واحد الفيلم ولا واحد المسلسل كيهضر على التاريخ ديال المغرب ويكون انتاج مدعوم من الدوله، مثلا بحال الانتاج اللي نتجت اللي ناتجينو ديال تركيا ديال العثمانيين. فالمغرب دازو فيه سلاطين وقوه لا تقل عن قيمه وقوه السلاطين العثمانيين، والدليل ما قدروش يدخلوا المغرب. اصدقائي ما عندي ما نضيف حتى لهنا. الفيديو ديالنا كمل. الى عجبكم الفيديو ما تنسوش تدعمونا بجيم واشتراك، والى اللقاء الى فيديو قديم ان شاء الله. وشهيه طيبه ولا بصحه الفطور ديالكم الا كنتو يلا فاطرين على حسب الوقت اللي كتشوفني فيه.